All right, want to welcome on Andy Hayes, founder of Go4. Andy, thanks for stopping by it's not a podcast, it's like our little mini pod booth here at NextUp.
Love it.
Why don't you give your background briefly and then what you guys are doing at Go4?
Sure. So my background in my former life, I was a high school biology teacher and head lacrosse coach at Episcopal Academy outside of Philadelphia. I started a company called Next Sports that grew to be one of the biggest lacrosse operators in the country. It was sold to 3-Step in 2020. And then along the way, I had this idea for health and participant safety. And so we started building Go4, which essentially is a infrastructure for participant health and safety. Our customers are tournament operators, schools, leagues, club teams, anywhere where a medical or healthcare provider needs to be on the sideline. Our tagline is every sideline, everywhere. We believe that the future of safety is not just about compliance around the administrative side, like background checks, anti-abuse training, all that stuff. We believe that there's a whole nother level to participant health and safety, which is actually on the field, and that you need to have an athletic trainer present who can implement an emergency action plan and ultimately document injuries.
So yeah, you talked about like the difference between sort of like the software, compliance, that's the maybe preventing, right, or trying to be proactive, and then there's like stuff's going to happen on the field. You guys are tackling that much harder challenge because it's boots on the ground. Talk about like scaling and building and growing that type of business versus a more software-based
Sure. So
business.
we currently have 25,000 athletic trainers on our platform. We are the largest job board in the country for athletic trainers. So it starts with building a community around a healthcare provider that has been somewhat overlooked. People don't know that athletic trainers go to school for 6 years. They have master's degrees. They are trained and educated in virtually all aspects of medicine, and they are, we think, the key to participant health and safety. As the youth sports bubble explodes, there's going to need to be some sort of requirement and or solution to helping kids, participants, whoever it is, at these massive events deal with injuries or, in some cases, worse than that, being able to respond.
Yeah, especially with I would think with the professionalization of youth sports, like that expectation is more built in. I show up to the park with my kids, like I'm sort of just not expecting that to be the case. But if I go to a for-profit tournament with 3,000 kids playing, like you expect there's some baseline of service there.
Absolutely. And that's what we did back at Next. We had an athletic trainer at every club practice. Every tournament was staffed with a healthcare provider. We had emergency action plans for every event, every club practice, and we documented every injury. Those three things we believe are going to be the foundation for what is the next step in, you referenced the professionalization of youth sports. We think about it more in the context of you want to be a real event operator, a real provider, then you need to have athletic trainers. You need to have an emergency action plan. And an emergency action plan that is shared with all the stakeholders that are there, like bringing them into, because when something bad happens, you got seconds. You don't have minutes. And 911 call, which was what most people do now, that takes time. And you need to be able to respond quickly to the event. And that's where we believe the athletic trainer focus and building that community of athletic trainers is going to be very important.
So is it just all medical, or does that include like other sorts of crises that could happen?
A proper emergency action plan has contingencies built in for all those things. Whether because it's not just about being venue specific; it's about being sport specific, right? The EAP for a 8-year-old flag football game is going to be way different than a lacrosse showcase. Injuries are different. All of those things. Like you have at a lacrosse showcase, you have the potential for head and neck injuries, like some very serious things happening, getting hit in the chest with a lacrosse ball, like all of those types of things. An emergency action plan is done right, should be shared with the operator of the venue, whether it be from the facility. It should be shared with every athletic trainer. And that is basically the response to a given situation. And in theory, makes it for a better result or a better outcome.
It's almost like you have to grow through two different routes, right? You have to attract athletic trainers to come on the platform, right? And then you got to grow towards operators. How do you market? Obviously, you market differently, but like, how do you go about approaching each? Because that's a critical mass of an athletic trainer. It sounds like you guys have, and that's not easy. That's much different than showing up to an event like this and finding someone to partner with and use your service at their event.
So the AT community, I mean, that's really the way we've done it, is built it around the community of a healthcare provider. We're champions of athletic trainers. We believe that they are going to be critical to, as all this money flows into youth sports in all different levels, that the athletic trainer is going to need to be on the sideline of these games, matches, tournaments, all those things. And so building the AT side takes trust, like that. The largest job board in the United States for athletic trainers, it pays them very quickly, right? We have other ancillary services that we've built in to support them in their profession, whether it's the digital, warehouse for credentials and licensure and things like that. And on the job poster side, we primarily we have over 10,000 customers. We have half of them are schools, half of them are youth sports operators and facilities and things like that. On top of our...
You get that sort of sale so quickly. I mean, you're like less than...
So, yeah, one, I think that the regulatory tailwinds are asking those types of questions of people now, and we've had a lot of word of mouth. We don't really have a sales or marketing team yet. Organically, people need to know how to hire athletic trainers, and I think the legacy solution to that was smoke signals, or who do you know, Kyle? And then you're like, Andy, text this person, and then, and all of a sudden you're doing that, versus here where you can post a job and right now you get an application inside 12 hours from an AT and all over the country. So it's a solution that is necessary. And then I think what becomes more relevant to any operator in the country is the emergency action plan and the documenting of injuries in real time to support any sort of situation or incident that happens.
How do you guys build the emergency action plan, right? Because on one hand, like, you're bringing the athletic trainer, but they're there for a job, a short-term gig.
Great question. So we have two pathways. The first one is our platform automatically generates an emergency action plan based on Google coordinates. So at the very least, if you were to launch a baseball tournament, at the very least, right, at some venue, let's say a park or things like that, you referenced the park, rolling up to some neighborhood park. At the very least, that athletic trainer will have the closest EMS, police, fire services in the palm of their hand attached to that individual job. It is on the job poster to then enhance the emergency action plan. Now, like a community park probably doesn't have an emergency action plan right now, but United Sports Training Center out in Downingtown, PA, they absolutely have an EAP. So they would be able to upload that EAP directly into the job, and the AT would have access to that. As it relates to injury records, the EMR, we're really the first ever sideline EMR. Like, we are built for somebody's phone on the sideline in the moment. What's truly novel about the EMR and the injury documentation tool we've built is that it's shareable with the parent in real time. So you take your kids to an event, they see Ellis. At the end, they'll say, Kyle, would you like access to your injury record? This is completely novel. So now we give you access to a encrypted, HIPAA-compliant database where you and only you can access your kid's medical or injury report for the next step in the care journey, whether it be the ER, where a clinician and not some coach or some ref or some parent has filled out this form. And, right now, what happens is like they fill out a piece of paper and it goes on somebody's desk with PHI, with personal health information on it, which is not HIPAA compliant. So together, the key is the athletic trainer, right? Because that's gonna stop the worst case scenario. But the other two pieces are just as instrumental to creating an environment that is safe in the real world, not in the cloud on the administrative side. And that's really the big difference of what we're doing with a lot of other people.
Are you seeing all this investor interest in the professionalization of youth sports that serves as a tailwind for what you guys are doing? Because it's now table stakes.
It's not even, it's that side of it, but also the regulatory winds are changing. Like, you need to have in some cases you need to have, whether it's return to play, you need to have an AED. People need to be certified in CPR. Like, this is changing. Like, the world around youth sports, with all of this capital coming in, with all of the expectations. If I was a parent and my kid got hurt at an event and there was nobody there to tend to the, like, how is that going to be acceptable in 2025 or 2026?
Are you guys self-funded and bootstrapped, or are you guys?
Yeah, we're self-funded, profitable. We continue to grow smartly, but the reality is that, you know, we get somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 new customers every day with very limited marketing resources. You know, the athletic trainers, we fill 95% of our jobs on the platform. And I think the key there also is this underlying data set, which is going to become very, very important around emergency action plans and documented injuries. So we are moving one step at a time.
Do you think there's integration potential with platforms like League Apps where you have venues and player and parent data, like so the players, coaches, and operators can see that in addition to
100%.
the trainer?
So right now, our solution has its own unique dashboard that is the job posters can see and things like that. But there's a world where this would potentially integrate with something like League Apps or something like any registration software that's out there, or somebody's how they run their club team. I think the registration software world is super fragmented, right? There's a lot of players. Everybody's looking for the next thing to like make sure their registration platform is the one that's taken, but it's really hard to get people off a single registration platform because it's their whole business, right? It's very, very sticky. I live this, I know this. We were a League Apps customer at Next for a very long time. So I think the challenge is yes, but also building 10 integrations into 10 different registration software platforms is going to be hard, and everyone's got, and then who wins, who's still around, like. So we are really focused on building this safety grid or the infrastructure of participant health and safety somewhat on an island until we figure out how that's all going to work together.
How to hook in. I think a lot of these platforms will eventually, over time, think more about their APIs and integrations, because there's so much more tech around it. It's the only way they can go to kind of keep growing.
100%.
Last one, what do you get out of coming to an event like NextUp?
So I actually spoke at the first NextUp conference, and I had not been back until this year. I came this year to just sort of take a temperature around health and participant safety. I wasn't looking to necessarily strike a big deal or any of that stuff. It was more to talk to people and find out how they view this, because, you know, a lot of people don't necessarily view athletic trainers and EAPs and EMRs as the top of their priority list. They think about it as an operational expense. And unlike in high schools where almost 50 kids have died on a sideline in some way in the last couple of years, right? We haven't really heard about it at the youth sports level, but that's going to change. And so this was more of a fact-finding mission for me to think about our people here, because when we were at Next, we had a full-time director of health and participant safety, and we were 12 years earlier than where we are today. Like, that didn't exist. And so I think it remains to be seen how we fit into the ecosystem, but I am confident that participant health and safety is going to become the #1 topic for this type of conference in the next few years.
Andy, thanks so much. Why don't you plug away? Where can people find you?
Yeah, if you need an athletic trainer, www.go4.io. Hit us up. We'll get you figured out.
Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.